Sounds great, doesn't it?
It does sound great.
It sounds great. That's from Mr. Ferry's latest album, which is a kind of compilation, not a compilation, it's a collection of Bob Dylan covers and tributes. We have Mr. Bryan Ferry with us, I'm delighted to say. Morning, Bryan, how are you?
Good morning, I'm very well, thank you.
You were just telling me you have sunglasses on indoors, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, I went to see this movie last night, and called 300, which is very good. Actually.
Great fun.
Action film. And then dinner and slightly too much to drink, so it feels a little bit the worse for wear.
Slightly smashed last night.
You could say that.
I'm hoping it wasn't on hooch and Alco Pops. I imagine that you're a slightly classier drinker.
Well, I wouldn't be saying, actually. I'm going to end up in any trouble.
A fine wine or two, I hope.
Yeah, yes.
Lovely to have you here. And the album's great. I love it because I love Dylan's songs. I've never been a huge admirer of his voice, so I've always enjoyed cover versions. And you've done many in the past as well, of course.
I have. The first single we ever did was Hard Rain's Gonna Fall.
That was your first solo thing, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so ever since then, I've done one or two things dipping into his catalogue. And he's a great songwriter, great words. And if you're a singer, you like great songs to sing. Yeah.
Has he ever passed judgment on your work? Do you know that if he's ever heard any of your versions?
Not a sausage, as far as I know.
Well, we need to sort of. He does some stuff on Radio 2 right now, doesn't he? I believe.
Well, I think they buy his radio shows.
No. He's in the studio. He's coming in later, and he comes in with his little box.
His radio show is very good. Have you heard it?
Of course not. Why would I be listening to Bob Dylan's radio show? What are you doing listening to Bob Dylan's radio show? You should be listening to this one. At least we play your stuff on a regular. We must give you about 70 quid a week on this show, I think.
Pioneers you are.
Okay. Can I ask you, Bryan, whereabouts do you live in the world right now?
In London.
You live in London?
Yeah.
What car do you drive? Do you have a car?
Audi. Great car.
I'm a business for an Audi, though.
A8, a W12, really fast.
Bryan should have a Morgan or a Bentley, shouldn't he?
Yeah.
It's a very nice car, I tell you.
Okay. Do you own many cravats?
I've got a car you would like, an old Corvette.
Oh, that sounds good. I like the sound of that. And where do you keep that?
Down in the country, in Sussex.
Oh, so you're a Corvette for the country.
Oh, yes.
Okay, Audi for town. That's nice. Do you favour a cravat ever, Bryan?
A cravat, no, but I've been thinking about it deeply recently, in fact, because I got a box of them. And quite floral, actually, so maybe you might be interested in one of these. Don't
start palming your old cravats off of me. I'm not interested in your old neckerchief rubbish, right? I'm just curious, because I think you could carry one.
I know you've been thinking about it.
Well, I tried to bring them back a while ago, and all that happened was I was in Hong Kong when I got chased around by a gay gentleman for about an hour and a half. But obviously, maybe it's a sign out there, I don't know.
It is the old closet look.
It took me ages I couldn't lose him.
In fact, the BBC used to be full of cravats at one point.
I think there's still a handful. Yeah. And are you wearing any M&S today? Can we?
Perhaps these exclusive cufflinks might be.
There you go. So it's a little bit of M&S going on.
Might be a bit.
When you sign a deal with someone like that, is part of the agreement that you have to wear their stuff? Or?
No, not at all. I mean, you have to like it. Otherwise you wouldn't endorse it.
Yeah.
But normally I wear different stuff. Very eclectic, actually.
I'm always surprised
that mixing things up, different designers.
But I'm surprised you weren't approached to do that kind of thing in the past before, because you're always known as, very stylish, having your own kind of quite unique take on clothing.
Yeah, of course.
And it was a distinctive thing.
Nobody had the vision before, really, to approach me, really.
Well, same here. Yes. No, what are you laughing at? No one's ever come on to me. I can't. What are you laughing at?
But when you get your cravat sorted out,
they'll
be flocking.
Right, here's what I'm going to suggest. You and me, let's pool our resources. Let's bring out our own range of cravats.
Cravat kids.
for the elderly gentleman.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. All right. Health-wise, you're okay? You're holding up well?
Very well, I think. Yeah, I've been on tour.
Yeah.
And we've done quite a few dates around Europe and the UK. We've got quite a few summer dates to do as well.
Right.
So we're spacing it out very nicely.
And that's more, I would have thought, a little bit of the summertime. If you're not doing a proper full-on tour and you're just picking like that, they must be, in a way, it must be more fun.
Well, it's good. Yeah, everybody can spend time at home in the band, and then the weekends get together and so on. But we're doing a few shows. We've got to do Scandinavia yet, and possibly America later in the year.
Now, America was a country which, with Roxy and your solo work, you never broke it as big as you did in Europe and here.
May we.
How do they respond to you now? Are they still? I guess you have pockets of fans in the.
Yeah, pockets. Yeah. Huge pockets of fans in New York, LA, Chicago.
So it's only those cities really. You never, not the flyover people, as I believe they refer to them.
That's right. Not the Midwest particularly.
So but in a way that must be quite nice, I would guess. Or is it still?
It means that you feel, you still feel kind of underground a bit and exclusive and. not a hit.
But as a fan of yours and as a fan of music generally, I quite like it when I have people I like who aren't huge, who aren't, you know,
Sure.
and I'm sure you must feel the same way. There are some people you like the fact that it's almost
When I
like
was
it's
a
yours,
kid,
your discovery.
exactly. When I first listened to Billie Holiday and Charlie Parker, people like that, I felt they were my thing because nobody else I knew about them, and so you felt a little bit possessive about them.
Were you ever tempted to sort of take a more jazzy route then, if you listened to those guys when you were a kid?
Not really, no. Because I wasn't a player as such, you know.
But jazz singing...
Great enthusiast. I mean, at the same time, I saw Bill Haley's first tour, you know, Rock Around the Clock.
You must be about two, I imagine, when you 2 or 3 years old. Yeah.
No, that's 6 months old. Incredibly advanced ears.
Wheeled himself down, wheeled himself home again.
Yes, very good.
But so rock and roll did it for you then more than jazz?
Yeah, it did. I mean, Little Richard and Fats Domino, people like that. And, of course, early Elvis was pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah, incredible. Did you ever see Elvis live?
No, never.
Who do you think is the best performer you've seen live? Do you know?
Very good question. It's a toss-up between probably Jimi Hendrix.
Wow, Hendrix live.
And I saw Newcastle City Hall. And probably Otis Redding was my pivotal moment. My road to Damascus, when I hitchhiked to London from Newcastle, where I was a student, and saw Otis Redding, Sam and Dave.
So that was the big Stax tour when they came over on the Stax tour.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been
the most phenomenal thing I'd ever seen. And that's when I decided I had to try to be a musician.
Wow, I remember when I discovered sax when I was just after, not sax, sorry, Stax. I remember when I discovered sax as well. But I remember when I discovered sax and I read about these tours and couldn't believe that all those people could have been on the same bill and you actually saw it.
Yeah. It was Steve Cropper, Duck Down, all these legendary kind of... And they still sound great, all those records.
And I bet, how did they do it? They did, what, 3 or 4 numbers each, or slightly more?
Yeah, 3 or 4 numbers each. Except, people like Eddie Floyd would do like Knock on Wood only or something, you know, at the beginning of the show.
And then go off. And that's incredible. So like a greatest hits tour, really.
Yeah, perfect, absolutely.
Stiff Records tried to do the same, but they basically had Jonah Louie, I think, Rachel Sweet and Reckless Eric. So although it was charming, it didn't quite have the cultural impact, I believe, of the Stax. What was Hendrix like then?
Very good. I mean, totally different, really wild, exciting. I remember him hurling his Flying V guitar into the speaker at the end of the show, and it quivering like it was really beautiful,
like an
amazing.
arrow.
Yeah, like an arrow.
And can you remember what you wore to that gig?
Probably a trench coat or something.
Well, it would have been big flared trousers, of course.
No, I don't think so.
Not flares, even
no,
then?
I had my own little thing going, really.
Oh, so this would have been, what,
probably
60,
a cravat there
67, 60... a cravat, maybe a pipe, a monocle?
A monocle would have been part of the old song.
A leg brace and a Biggles hat. That was, right, have you seen this man? You obviously love Dylan.
Yes.
What else do you listen to? I know you like the Arcade Fire.
I do. I think they're very good. They're a very good band. The first album was pretty amazing. And I still haven't actually caught up with the new one yet.
Yeah, it's good, but it's consistent. It's perhaps a little less immediate, I think.
You know. I like that girl, Amy Winehouse. I think her single's really good.
Yeah.
It's a real proper single.
Yeah, she's got a great sound, hasn't she?
Good voice and good arrangement.
Well, if you like that jazz sort of sound anyway, you would like her.
Yeah, it's... good on a jukebox, I should think.
What about guitar rock bands? Do you listen to any of them?
Not so many.
Okay, well, let's put some... what are we going to play for?
Well, I was going to pick a track by the band called The Pioneers, called the version of Nana, Hey Hey, Kiss Him Goodbye. But looking at this album, and as Brian's done this album, there's a track by the Brothers and Sisters, a version of All Along the Watchtower.
Oh, right.
Oh,
which is like a northern soul track, and I've listened to it before, and I think it's worth
It's not like 20 minutes long, though, is it?
No, it's 3 minutes.
All right, okay, let's bug it on and give it a try.
It's the Brothers and the Sisters.
I like that. It's a good sound.
The Brothers and Sisters.
I like it when you get this high-pitched organ sound coming in like that. That's kind of very much of that period. Or is it just me?
Sorry, just you, really.
Yeah. Brian, it must be, I would have thought, terrifying. Not terrifying, maybe that's the wrong word, but certainly difficult when making an album, because now you can more or less have any sound you want. You can have any instrument you want. You can use it. You know, in the old days, of course, you couldn't. It was who you had around and what you were doing. And now I would imagine, and knowing what little I do about you, and you're not famed for your decisiveness and the immediacy of the creative process.
Well, that's why making this record, the Dylan album, was amazing, because we just did it in a very old-fashioned way, where you just get all the guys in the studio with the material and make the record.
And how many tracks did you record it on? Because it used to be 8 or 16 was the top level, wasn't it?
I think we had a big, it's a proper big studio that we used, 48 track, I suppose.
But you probably don't need that many, do you?
Didn't use them all. It's just kind of, you just do that for the separation of each instrument, But we all play. It's all done basically live, all together. So there wasn't any studio technology.
I very much like the sound of it, and this isn't in any way a criticism of that. But do you experiment with sound much now? Do you like to play around with the kind of nature of sound in the way that you did perhaps in the early Roxy stuff?
Well, not only in the early Roxy stuff, but in the dark ages of working on albums like Mamuna and so on, which historically went on forever, you felt you were obliged to try out all the possibilities of modern studios and the different, as you said before, there's different sounds you can get, which are limitless, But which is why after you've been around all that stuff, you tend to like doing an organically simple record like this.
Well, especially if you admire people like Otis Redding and the Sax records. That's where they come from, of course. But at the same time, you have a foot in the other camp quite firmly. What are you laughing at? Because it sounded a bit like a rude word. We'll go to the news. We'll chat some more about this afterwards. 88 to 91 FM, this is Radio 2 from the BBC. The great Otis Redding, and we're here talking to the great Bryan Ferry. Are you aware of your legacy? Do you feel that you've made the impact that you would like? Have you left behind what you would like? Not that it's over yet by a long shot, but you know what I'm saying?
Yes to all of those. No, you still feel you've got a lot more to do. A lot of projects that you have in the back of your mind that you want to kind of get done. And like the Dylan one, for instance, I've been thinking about doing that album for many years, of doing a whole album of his stuff and things like that.
Well, let's talk. Still talking about projects to get done.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the new Roxy Music album.
Yeah, well, there's a big one.
This has been, and I get the feeling that any number of factors are contributing to this, but you're beginning to feel that this is somehow more portentous than it necessarily was when it started out, that there's more at stake.
Expectation, yeah. Well, that happens, of course. I mean, what happened was we started doing shows together. We did a big reunion tour thing in 2001, and since then we've done a few more smaller tours. And it's great to play with, the original guys from the band.
So is it all the original guys? Are they still all around available? You have Manzanell on guitar, of course.
Yeah.
Wetton on bass, would that be right?
No, it's... Actually, Guy Pratt's been playing bass.
Guy Pratt, who's terrific,
been with us for a long time.
Well, you guys got through bass players at a rate of knots, didn't you? They never stuck around.
Hot dinners,
yeah, it was like drummers in Spinal Tap for you, bass players, weren't they? Andy Mackay still on saxophone?
Andy Mackay, yeah. And Paul Thompson on drums.
Fantastic. Tomo Thompson.
And Brian Eno was guesting on... what he does. It was just all sorts of things.
What does he do? No one's ever really worked that out.
He tells very good jokes.
Interior design, I believe. Curtains chosen by Eno.
He has a very good show on at the Sage, in the Baltic Theatre, not Sage Theatre, Baltic Art Gallery in Gateshead.
One of his installations, is this?
Yeah, one of his big
I like his video stuff. Is it the fact that Eno's back together, is that adding to the kind of pressure? Because people are thinking, all right, this is Roxy Music as they were in that first and second album only.
Well, one of the reasons I did the Dylan album was to take some of the pressure off myself, because I felt I didn't want to wait for 2 years before I had a new piece of music out there. So, and I knew this was going to be a long project, the Roxy thing. So I thought I'll do this Dylan project and get that out there. And it's been really well received, and we've enjoyed playing those songs on stage.
Well, they sound
if you play
great
live, it's nice to have new material,
of course,
to give to the audience. So good.
But when do we get to hear the Roxy album?
That'll be the end of next year, I should think.
End of next year?
Yeah.
What, seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
What on earth is going on? How can it be that long?
It's all in the writing, dear chap.
They finished the music, yeah? You finished the music? You've got the tunes?
We've got half of the music there, yeah.
Well, how long is it going to take you to finish them, though? If you've got 6,
the music won't take very long, the rest of it. The words take forever.
Bryan, why? Why, Bryan?
Haven't got your gift of the gab, John.
Bryan, well, I'll write one for you.
You should, really. I'll come down to your country retreat.
Do you know? Please do. Do you know what you hope to say with the tracks? The ones that you've got the music for so far. Do you have an idea of the shape or the focus or the purpose of that song?
Yeah, and I work from the inside out, I suppose, for the feel of it, the emotion of it, really.
So you have an idea of the kind of...
The emotion is there musically, and you try and enhance that with the words, if you can.
And so have you started writing the lyrics for these songs?
I've done a little bit, but hardly anything at all.
How do you work, on computer or longhand?
Longhand.
So old school?
Old school, very much so.
Notebooks that you carry around with you?
Yeah, pencils.
Ever scribble on the back of a napkin?
I do.
So inspiration strikes.
Yeah, yeah.
You're in a Starbucks.
You never know, it might get you.
You think, oh, what does that rhyme with? Starbucks. And then next thing you know, you've got yourself a rather sweet couplet.
Sweet couplet, a new contract with the coffee folk.
I think we need to give Brian a shake or something. He must be driving people mad. But poor old Brian Eno. He'll be waiting so long, his hair will grow back. I think they should release some merchandising. Have you ever seen those things called Kia Pets, where you can grow the crest out the top of something? How about a Brian Eno Kia Pet, right? You just sprinkle it by the sink. Yeah, and out comes the crest.
Yeah, very good.
I think so. While we're waiting for the album, let's put... okay, we're going to play a track of mine. This is one of Brian's early songs that he put together with Roxy Music. I think this was from the first album. Initially, this was from the first Roxy Music album called Remake Remodel.
Oh yeah.
And then Brian revisited this on one of his solo albums. I think it might have been your third solo album, Let's Stick Together.
Yeah, it was the one with the hit.
Yeah, of course. Okay, no, come on, there are other hits. Don't be so distant.
Just kidding.
I should hope so. Here you go. This is the reworked version of Remake Remodel, which I'm very fond of indeed. That's great, isn't it?
Yep.
What a great video. I'm just going to unplug my MP3 player in case it goes on to the next track by random selection, which would have been hard on my sleeve. That's not a great version, that one.
You're very up to date, aren't you?
Yeah. Brian, did you ever work, or were you tempted to work with David Bowie? Did you guys get along? Did you meet each other much? Did you pass across?
I once went to stay with him in Mystique, where he had a house. Very nice guy. Very nice house, very nice wife, and but never worked with him.
Because I always got the feeling, for me growing up, you two were the kind of, you struck me as being on similar courses. You were two guys fairly avant-garde, but populist as well, not afraid to experiment in the way you looked, the way it sounded, and so on and so forth. And I always thought there would be perhaps a dovetailing at some stage.
What are you saying? He's another cravat wearer, is what you're trying to get at?
Potentially, I'm hoping the three of us will join together to launch the new cravat range.
Yes, he was more established when Roxy came along. He'd been out and about for 5 years or more, I think. And so we were very lucky enough to open for him on a couple of shows at the beginning of our career. But then he seemed to go off to America or whatever.
I imagine there was a similar kind of audience, though, that you shared. I would imagine,
I would say
people tended to be Bowie and Roxy fans.
I would say so.
And when punk happened, a lot of the first wave of people in punk had been people who were happy to dress up to go to your concerts and his concerts. So there was that kind of...
He had a great band with that, Mick Ronson, the guitar player, and so on.
When punk first came along, what did you make of it? What did you think of it? Were you threatened? Did you enjoy it? Were you excited by it? Were you dismayed by it?
It was interesting. No, I thought it was a good... But you see, a lot of the punk people had been, punk bands had been fans of Roxy, I think. So there was a thread there with Susie and the Banshees, and I think maybe the Clash and...
the Damned always still had a lot. They didn't sound like
even the Pistols, who used the same producer that we'd used, Chris Thomas. And I was in L.A., living there for a year, when it all kind of exploded in England. And so the album that I made, which is one of my favourites, actually, from my stuff, called The Bride Stripped Bare, was very different from what was going on in England, except for one track, which was I wrote about the punk thing, called Sign of the Times.
Of course, which was a hit as well, wasn't it?
It was a kind of sort of lower regions type of thing.
But, I only ever expected you to reach the lower regions because I always thought it was a little bit too good for the unwashed masses.
That's very sweet of you. Yeah.
That's a nice way of looking at it.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It was too clever.
It was sort of high end.
Was it irritating though? Was it frustrating? Never kind of having the impact at that period that you perhaps hoped for, or felt that the songs deserved?
It's character building. Because we felt we had a great record, but then it didn't really register at the time. And but years later, it has done. People
I very
picked
much
it up more and more. Yeah. It's quite interesting. Great when that happens. It's like you feel that you're cashing in or something.
Do you have someone? Who do you have? Who you listen to? Whose opinion you respect? Who around helps advise you as to what to put on an album, what not to put on an album? Is there someone?
Well, I've got a good producer that I work with. I've worked with for years. In fact, he was an assistant, engineer on Another Time, Another Place in '74 or something. Right. I've known him for a very long time. Yeah. Then he went off to work with Eno and Talking Heads, a guy called Rhett Davies. So
it must be hard, I would have thought, to know who to listen to, or to. You have to respect them as well, of course.
Sure, yeah. And over the years, had some very good people, working with me, and as I do now. It's interesting how you work with sometimes the same people for 20 years or more, and then at the same time you get in fresh blood, and like at the bands, you know.
Well, I
you
noticed
get
the
young
band
lads coming in.
Well, the band you have at the moment, it's it's a terrific band, and they're very much it's very much the old and the new together there. Because
Yeah,
that
it's a
young
good mixture.
guitarist you have, Ollie, I believe his name
Yeah,
is.
well, he's only 18, I think. Then there's another guitar player, Leo, who's like in his mid-20s or something. And then Andy Newmark, the drummer who played with Sly Stone and John Lennon.
Yeah, wow.
Then Spedding, of course, who was of my
Chris
era.
Spedding, who's 92, I believe. Happy birthday today
Same
to
age
Chris
as me.
Spedding, 92 years old. He looked a bit like Morris's dad when I saw him the other night. He's got a barrel chest and a silver quiff.
Very good.
Not a bad look for a fella. Kind of like a supervillain.
He is a supervillain, yeah.
Brian, lovely to see you again. Thank you so much for coming in. It's always a pleasure. It's never a chore. I can't wait for that Roxy Music album, which, as he said, will be out in a month's time, I believe. Is that right?
Any day now, I think is what I'd say.
Try and get a move on. It's only music. Hey, no one's judging you, really. Yeah. We just want someone to sing along to in the car.
Of course.
I bet Eno must be going crazy, though. He's thinking, go on, get finished.
No, he's got so many projects that he's
okay.
always
all right.
busy.
Well, if only for Andy Mackay's sake, because he doesn't get out much on his own, does he? Lovely to see you again. Congratulations on the album. I'm loving it.
Thank you
and I'm
very
listening
much.
to it quite a lot more every day. It sounds great. I am looking forward to the new Roxy Music album. I'm sure it will be well worth the wait. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Great, thank you.